Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We will now start the event. The author's family, the peer group members enlisted in the booklet, and the members of the heterogeneous group are so happy and feel encouraged by the response witnessed in this hall. We find that the response is even better outside. This speaks about the keen interest already evoked by this book. It explains the modus operandi probably adopted by our rishis and siddhas to reveal their several highly scientific contributions. Of late, post the quantum physics days, its findings are getting validated by scientists one by one, contrary to their earlier stand. After years of correlated and comparative studies, the author has come out with solid scientific and well-meshed foundations on which stand these Vedic precepts. We are happy to present now glimpses of it, logically set out with illustrative examples. Though these subjects are of high complexity, these have been handled in simple and lucid manner so as to reach all levels, say the peer reviewers of this book who really functioned as devil's advocates on one side and lent helping hands with valuable suggestions which refine several pages of this book. We request your close attention to this evening's proceedings as the subject involves higher levels of Vedantic and scientific basics and contours. It is said that a plethora of scientific concepts lie encoded in our scriptures. The idea here is neither to reiterate this often repeated point, a matter of pride to us Hindus, nor to decry it as an overzealous interpretation that the emphasis is rather on the process of the acquisition of knowledge perfected by the rishis, and to draw inspirations from such approaches so as to complement the efforts of scientists to benefit every living and non-living entity of the globe, which is the very declared aims as per the Rig Vedic hymn 1, 3, and 4. We welcome all of you and seek your support in propagating the said Vedic aims established in the book. Let us hear more from our guests. Now I request my mother, Mrs. Lalita Gopalan, to welcome our guests.
Kaliyuga Varadan Kanda Devamai Kachiyali Pada Paranile Kaliyuga Varadan Kanda Devamai Kachiyali Pada Paranile Kaliyuga Varadan Kanda Devamai Kachiyali Pada Paranile Paranile Malai Magaruliya Shaktivel Murugan Malai Magaruliya Shaktivel Murugan Malai Magaruliya Shaktivel Murugan Malai Magaruliya Shaktivel Murugan Maragada Vandana Tirumal Marugan Maragada Vandanam Tirumal Marugan Maragada Vandanam Tirumal Marugan Kaliyuga Varadar Kanda Devamai Kachiyali Pada Paranile Kaliyuga Varadar Kanda Devamai Kachiyali Pada Paranile Paranile கண்ணுத கடவுளின் கண்மணியாய் வந்தாய் கண்டுத கடவுளின் கண்மணியாய் வந்தாய் கார்த்திகை பெண்டீர்கள் அனைத்தில் வளர்ந்தான் விண்ணவர் குறையெல்லாம் நொடியில் களைத்தான் வேண்டுவோர் வேண்டுமுன் வரமெல்லாம் தந்தான் வேண்டுவோர் வேண்டுமுன் வரமெல்லாம் தந்தான் வேண்டுவோர் வேண்டுமுன் வரமெல்லாம் தந்தான் கலியுக வரதள் கண்ட தேவமாய் காட்சியளிப்பது பழனியிலே பழனியிலே பழனியிலே. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We would like to first of all start the evening by welcoming and inviting one and all the well-wishers, family, and friends of the author, my father-in-law, who are our august audience, who have taken time off from their schedule to be with all of us during this special occasion. I would like to start the introductions of the chief guest and would like to highlight the few of the guests who were supporting the author as he was penning his thoughts and enabling us to get to this occasion and beyond. Firstly, please welcome Dr. S. Balasubramanian, Chairman, City Union Bank. Joined City Union Bank in the year 1971 and rose up the ranks, proving his mettle at every stage to head and spread his operational efficacy. He, along with his MD, Mr. Kamakoti, has been instrumental to grow the bank to an annualized turnover of 36,000 crores, which had its humble origin in the temple town of Kumbakonam and still headquartered there. CUB, as it is always called, is tagged as Easy on a bank, Rasi on a bank, thus meeting the needs of MSMEs too to undertake business scaling and new product development activities, promoting development and manufacturing in India. Heterogeneous group of companies through its business units, Anbu and Gomati, can vouch for the same as they grow and innovate with timely support from CUB. CUB is known for its charitable activities across the state of Tamil Nadu. Dr. Balasubramanian has been instrumental in making the bank lead in promoting our culture with its aim to ensure harmony and prosperity across the globe, preserving our scriptures and heritage. We are honored by him as he is personally willing to support us in propagating the work of the author. It appears he has gone through it cover to cover and is impressed by the book's ambit and purpose. More so by the fact that it brings out how Gayatri Mantra, supported by yoga, including Nada Yoga, are universal in their intent and are profoundly mystic, accurately scientific, immensely powerful, protecting the individuals, communities globally, nourishing the concepts of Vasudeva Kudumbakam. He has signaled his support by accepting to be the chairperson for the book launch, and we hope CUB as an institution will enable further organized study and research in the creation of the next generation Rishi scientists. It is said that he is endowed with golden and benevolent touch, and any project he is associated with grows to its heights. As such, we consider that his presence is our good fortune. As a business and management wizard of standing, his guidance is sought by many individuals and establishments throughout the country. He is a philanthropist and catalyst of philosophical, educational, spiritual, religious, cultural, and social activities et al., and yet very simple, amiable, and approachable, and as such a rare and a tall personality worthy of emulation. With this, we welcome sir, your gracious presence. At this point, we should acknowledge our relationship professionally and as a family to CUB started through ramen and ramen from Kumbakonam right from our grandfather's days, 3 generations before. We are happy to have along with us Mrs. Lalita Sethuraman, well-known social reformer, and Ramani Mama, who unfortunately could not be with us today due to some medical exigency. Their names are synonymous, and with Kumbakonam too, to their numerous contributions. Next, we like to welcome and introduce Srimati Lalita Sethuraman, a close family friend for 3 generations. It should be apt to add that P.S. Narayanan Iyers and ours are not 2, but 1 family. We addressed each other as Chittappa and Peripa, the late Sri Narayana Iyer being the senior. Besides, late Sri Sethuraman is an epigraphist of international repute, commanding good lot of international citations, and in fact, he is honored for correcting the birth date of the great Raja Raja Choran. Lalita's social services in shaping up the have-nots is as countless as the number of charitable, well-arranged marriages she conducted and fostered their well-being at her cost, which she says will never cease. We therefore intend honoring all of them together. Now Lalita Auntie being a thick family friend as our chief guest. Next, we would like to introduce Dr. A.V. Srinivasan, key guest speaker, who is a philosopher, poet, and a world-renowned neurologist. Men who are occupied in the restoration of health to other men by their joint exertion of skill and humanity are above all the greats of the earth. They even partake of divinity, since to preserve and renew is almost as noble as to create, said Voltaire about doctors. And if you're desirous of meeting one such, all you have to do is visit him at AVS Clinic in R.A. But alas, how fortunate we are all, just as here with us to share his wisdom. Dr. A.V. Srinivasan, whose endearing and ever-cheerful presence is by itself a curative, is the Emeritus Professor of the Tamil Nadu Dr. MGR Medical University and Adjunct Professor, Indian Institute of Technology in the Biotechnology Department. He is former Professor of Neurology and Head Institute of Neurology, Madras Medical College. Highly qualified, internationally recognized, but his simplicity and approachability is as much admirable as it is a rare combination. Besides, he believes and practices as per William J. Maya's contention that the aim of medicine is to prevent disease and prolong life. The ideal of medicine is to eliminate the need of a physician. His 100 Chintani Muttukal is sweet and short Tamil, is as rich as that of Atichurudi in reforming the social order. Just to give you a taste of it, here is one. மருகிறது மரங்களன் நிறம் மருகிறது கலங்கள் மறி வருகிறது ஆத்மவ உலகில் நிரந்தரம். Next, we would like to welcome and introduce Mr. Venkata Ramana, a key guest speaker who is going to provide his attempt to exemplify the concepts enunciated in this book. Graduate in philosophy and also psychology. 8 years in learning Vedic and other scriptures of the Hindus under the tutelage of Sringeri Paramacharya. Retired senior management professional, currently functioning as a management consulting. Visiting professor of several universities, conducts courses in soft skills, stress management, Indian philosophies. The next guest we would like to mention and invite is Dr. Kamalam Parthasarathi. A colleague of the author while working at BHEL R&D. Doctorate in Aeronautical Engineering from IISc Bangalore. Functioned as Senior Research Computational Scientist in the field of electromagnetics at BHEL R&D Hyderabad. Retired as DGM R&D. Very insightful Vedantin with a scientific bias and a mathematically fine-tuned astrologer. Besides a free consultant to our friends at R&D and predicted their future more precisely than others. Next, we would like to welcome Sri S.P. Muthukrishnan, former DGM of Indian Overseas Bank, has been a good friend of the author since the days both of them were in Secunderabad. Sri SPM, as he is known, is an experienced banker and in his long career in banking held several senior positions. He also served IOB in Hong Kong as the chief manager. Deputy General Manager of IOB, principal of its Apex staff training colleges, retired with all-round education. Now I would like to recognize Professor K. Srinivasa Rao. He has contributed significantly while the book was being created and edited. Dr. Rao, a fellow of the National Academy of Sciences and a fellow of the Tamil Nadu Academy of Sciences, has also been a fellow of the Alexander Humboldt Foundation of Germany. He is a retired senior professor of the Institute of Mathematical Sciences, Madras, and after superannuation between December 2002 and May 2005. He was the principal investigator for the Center for Development of Advanced Computing's National Multimedia Resource Center in Pune. This 20 lakh rupees Government of India project resulted in the production of 2 CD-ROMs on the life and work of Srinivasa Ramanujan, with Dr. Rao's responsible for its design and production. Now I would like to recognize our guest, Mr. P.R. Sundaravadivel. Adbhuta, classmate of the author from the days of their entry into the College of Engineering, Guindy, in 1954, who fertilized many non-green fields of India. As vice chairman and MD of SPIG, is also an industrialist after retirement. Our family friendship grew and grew on its own without the need for any external fertilization. They have been the mentor of each other with a strong bond within familiarity known as the Group of Five. Thank you, one and all, for being part of this gathering. Now I'll give it over to my daughter, Yashasvi.
Now I would request Mr. Rajaram Muthukrishnan to introduce the book as he has seen it, and interestingly, he gives it from the views of an individual who's he's an individual who's from what he calls intermediate generation, getting to know his legacy as an individual Indian.
Good evening, and thank you, yes, for deciphering my handwriting. It's not easy, I know. I'm not a doctor, but it's equally bad. Well, I'm here as she said, as what I call as an intermediate generation. My only qualification to be here is I have read this book cover to cover, and I'm a friend of ours. We grew up in Secunderabad as schoolmates, and I know Uncle for a long time, and he wanted somebody to speak from the intended audience of this book. So in that capacity, I'm here to share a few thoughts and introduce this book. And my brief is to give you a generic overview of the structure of the book, the purpose of the book, or the content of the book, and leave it to more distinguished speakers, more knowledgeable speakers, to give you a lot better insight than a semi-informed layman like me. So let me begin with a few thoughts on my interactions or my thoughts that came to me when I first read this book. I'm reminded of a Tirukural. Eppurul ettanmedithainum appurul meipurul kaanpadu arivu. This is the Kural that struck me when I read this book and I put it down. It is the intellect that discerns and sees the truth for what it is, and that truth is self-evident, is the general purport of that Kural. And that is, in a sense, what this book is to the author. And it is with that intent in mind, I suppose he started to share his thoughts and give us this intermediate generation, as I call myself, an insight into what is our real legacy. We are a product of Macaulite education. The strongest shackle that we all have is the one in our minds. I will illustrate this with an incident that came across to me. I used to work for IBM, and a few years ago, one young guy, the usual IIT, IIM, hotshot executive of an MNC, boldly declared that anything concrete and good that has come in India has only come with the advent of foreign education, especially English education. We had no legacy of science. It left me stunned, because I'm kind of an in-between generation, the 45-year-old guys who have had some kind of inkling of what our legacy is, probably gleaned from Amar Chitra Kathas and the 80s soaps that we saw on TV, Mahabharata, or the occasional listening ins to the discussions that my father had with uncle. And so something struck me very, very shockingly at that statement. I just turned around and asked him, if that was the case, who built the dams in Kallanai much before Western education came here? Did it mean that we didn't know any trigonometry or mathematics or civil engineering concepts? It just made me strike a chord that we are somewhat remiss, this intermediate generation, in passing on what is our legacy. And that is something that comes to us because we ourselves are not conversant to that. So where was that bridge lacking? The Macaulite shackle in us feels that everything that we need to know is available in the Western thought or the Western way of thinking, and there was nothing of any import or significance that we can take from our own legacy and our own thought process and our own schools of thought. That set me thinking, and I started developing my own interest in that, in how should I equip myself. And this book, ladies and gentlemen, is what comes to me as a bridge that actually can help us clearly explain that what we have as legacy is what the rest of the world is yet to discover. And there is a connection that it's our duty to establish. The generation preceding us have worked a lot. They've contributed a lot to the development of this country. BHEL is one of the Navaratnas of the country. At the time when we had no technology, no capital, no insight, no management skill, this generation of Indians built us something where we can now dream of being a superpower or going beyond and being a globally recognized emerging country and all that. But without that base, it wouldn't have been possible. What is it in that Indian generation, post-independence, made them go beyond all their limitations to do something without much of reward? It essentially was the impact of their preceding generations and their duty of passing on the legacy of service as an attitude and sharing of knowledge, sharing of wealth as a way of life, which helped them build the India that we can now dream of. So it is natural that we should continue that process and pass on to Yash's generation what is our true legacy, instead of getting distorted by lack of understanding, if I put it simply. So let me get to the book. If I were to answer a few questions, the first question is, who is this book for? This book is for Indians who are strangers to their own legacy. Simply put, that's the key. And they can be of any generation and from any standing. But this book would help them connect to that legacy that they have got, and would help them connect their thought process and our way of thinking and our way of philosophy, which looks always and constantly bridges a gap with that the Western science, with all its limitation, poses to us. The Western science, with its way of thought process and very, very deep thinking and very structured thinking, going deep into a particular topic, often misses out the connections that it has to the larger picture. The Eastern philosophies and our way of thinking recognizes the whole picture as a constant shruti. The backbone of our thought process is the keeping in mind the connectedness of our universe, of the cosmos, as well as the internal universe, and how we react between people across species as well. And we view everything as one, while we are pursuing in deep discipline to get to the truth of the individual subjects that we pursue. We never lose sight of that whole. And sometimes the whole has a lot more meaning than the independent views that we get from siloed thinking. And siloed thinking sometimes gets stopped by the contradictions that it itself throws about, because one way and one perspective goes and contradicts another way and another perspective. So this particular thought process, how does that gel in with the scientific way of thinking, is something that we need to understand. But we have to use the language of science to throw open to the viewers of, to the readers of tomorrow and today, the key that was placed in the scriptures and our way of life and thinking to the universal truth, to the holistic way of thinking. This book is meant for those who want to go on a voyage of discovery using the language and dictum of science to get a grasp or a nodding acquaintance, if I may, of the eternal truths that has been encapsulated and communicated to us with coded keys, so to safely disseminate the information and control that the Rishi scientists have made. This book is an attempt towards that. And it is this book, it's targeted to those Indians who want to go on that voyage of discovery. So it has certain pre-qualifications that it expects from the reader. It expects the reader to know a little bit more about the scientific principles that have changed the world. It has to have, the person has to have a passion for science, and the person has to have a passion for making the bridge and making the understanding of our legacy and the scientific nature of our own precepts and the concepts that was enunciated to us by our rishis. Next, if I have to answer the next question, why did this author write this book? Perhaps he felt that urge come from within, that he is actually born to do that. We are all born with a cause, and his cause and calling called him to write the book. It's as simple as that. But I have heard from my father and from him in multiple occasions that this was an unspoken ask from his father, who was a great man who wanted to do this activity and research and bring to the fore that science and the scientific way of inquiry is not something that is divorced from the spiritual way of inquiry that was propagated by our elders. And that unspoken wish or unspoken ask, this son has, with this book, made good. I think that's an important thing. My father said that the great C.R. Das honored his father's commitment and paid all the creditors with interest after he became a barrister of some means, without any legal obligation for him to do so. I think he is an Indian of that caliber. He's a legacy of Sir Das. So that could be a personal reason, but I would think that it is his calling. His life's purpose is to write this book. Probably a lot more than his tint of BHEL, this contribution will probably be his legacy going forward. Next question logically would be, how does this book actually stand up to scientific scrutiny? Well, he has quoted the latest discoveries and the cutting edge discussions in science. And I would go a little beyond and say most of the game-changing scientific discoveries are a proof point for the essential point that he tries to make through this book, that there is a constraint to inductive logic of science in terms of unraveling all the mysteries that this universe is throwing at us. And for us to go beyond that constraint, you have to go into that intuitive logic. If you look at the game-changing discoveries made in science by the scientists, it has been through those flashes of intuitive logic which has propelled it. Whether it's Newton discovering computing the gravity, or whether Einstein getting a flash in his mind the early morning time for his relativity equations and the wave particle theory, whether it was Heisenberg's uncertainty principle coming to him in a flash, whether it was Nikola Tesla boldly stating that he saw all his designs, he saw it, he realized it in its finest detail in a flash, and it was not something that he worked out through his intuitive, inductive logic. So these are some of the game changers of science. Be it every field, these game changers have relied on those intuitive flashes, and that is why I believe they may be accidental Rishi scientists, if you may, and that is why this I would believe is the biggest scientific proof that the theory that is espousing is actually validated by the acts of the scientists and by their own admissions, that the truths that they have seen is by flashes of intuition going beyond their capabilities of computational logic. Srinivasa Ramanujam, you can just count examples like that, and you can just reel out so hundreds of examples to drive home that point. So I would believe beyond what he has written and quoted, and the kind of God particle discovery and the collapse and of the wave theory at some point, all that he deals with this book, it is a validation. Finally, what does he want to achieve with this book? If I were to look at it from that perspective, he is basically seeing this as a beginning of a journey. If we can bridge these two streams of activity, of scientific discipline, rigor, inquiry, of observation, hypothesis, validation through experimentation, conclusion and proof, with the spiritual methodology of growing the path of using the Gayatri mantra as a tool to unlock the mysteries and get to the truth faster, and then try to get the benefits of the truth faster, and then use those truths responsibly. Science without spiritualism is just Ashuric in nature. That's our belief, and that's the belief of our country and our way of life. So that is something that he probably wants to see a renaissance of within the scientific community and from the spiritual community, a co-joining of minds and a new way of thinking. We are probably blessed as Indians to be proud legacy owners of both streams of thought. We have the computational logic. Mathematics grew out of India. The various sciences have their origins in India. The truths that were exposed in terms of revelations, the abode of the rishis, and we have within ourselves our way of life, a firm imprint in our DNA to look at the world as a Vasudhaiva Kudumbam. So maybe we are looking to be the vanguard of this renaissance that we see. This is about the book. In terms of what he has covered, I'll just give you a very brief overview of that. It starts about uh, introducing the essence of Sanatana Dharma, a brief view of what the Yoga Shastras are, and the concept of Gayatri Mandira as a key to unlock. It goes about to talk about the limits of science in unlocking reality as we see it. A short introduction into the philosophical approach, and then there is a discussion that he has on buddhi or consciousness. He called the BMCA complex, and he talks about how the buddhi or consciousness is the only real thing and the material thing is unreal. So there is a discussion on that. The awakening of buddhi through intuitive logic as opposed to complete reliance on inductive logic of science is something that would be a key to unraveling or unlocking the theories of universe and get to the reality of Brahman. The advancement of science in terms of coming together or coming towards or converging towards the truths that are responded in our Dharma in terms of transcendence and non-local action, as he calls it. The fact that energy in its various forms is the base of everything, and he introduces this concept of micro energies, which is a very interesting thing for me, and the DNA of universe, right from the microcosmic world to the macrocosmic world, in terms of how the DNA of this universe is structured, the interconnectedness of everybody, the pre-planning of everything, and the fact that there is only a certain amount of scope for us in a particular context to take certain actions, and the fact that we are part of this pre-programmed program of intelligent design, and there is a person or there is a being or there is whatever you want to believe in, which is the Nirguna Brahman, which is where we are all from and we are part of, and that concept leads us into the concepts that he discussed about the mighty akasa or the vacuum space, which he says what you need to lock into and download the secrets of the universe. And then he brings in the very difficult concepts of Maya, which laymen generally have more than, they can talk about it for hours and days together, but still not get the answer for it. Because if you get the answer, you're no longer a layman, is what I understand of it. But he has done a very good exposition of bringing the concept from a scientific perspective as well. And then he talks about bringing together of all these sciences, the string theory and how all the scientific discoveries, pushing the background, is getting to the unified field view, and how Akasha is is a space that is there within our body, within the cell, and as well as the macrocosmos. And then it brings to the points of contention, and he lays down certain postulates where he says the discoverer is now free to go and explore further, where the convergence between scientific thought and the Vedantic thought are converging. He just takes up certain postulates, he puts up some postulates like federated banks, etc., and where he says there's a matter universe and the antimatter universe, and the balance goes off. There's a cataclysmic correction that happens, and this is cyclical, and when in a cycle there is neither a start or an end, where the end is the start and the start is the end, and so on and so forth. Finally, he calls for an action. The action is for the need for Rishi scientists and the Vedantins to work together. This is the overview of the book. It from a perspective of the language that he has used, it asks or demands of us a certain amount of discipline and rigor in understanding it, because the concepts itself are heavy. But he has made a tremendous and great effort to bring it down to the understanding of lay people like me. If I can understand it, I'm sure many people can understand and relate, and can be in a position to address those young guys who come and say that there is no scientific thought in our Sanatana Dharma or whatever. With proper language of science, we should be able to explain and get them ignited to go into this discovery of their own legacy, because that benefits everyone. So this is my view or my take from this book. Of course, I have read it with a level of understanding which is, as I already indicated, is not too great, because I am not Vedantin. I have not studied or understood the text in its purest form. I am not a student of Sanskrit. I have not been formally educated in Tamil also. So I have my own drawbacks, but whatever I have learned is by through Shruti, I've learned my father discussing things. I've learned and read books. That's my base of knowledge. But this book, like in Vinayaka Ragaval, where talks about how Vinayaka unlocks the mysteries to her. She said, Satattunulle Sadasivam Kati, Sittatinile Sivalingam Kati, Anuvukku Anuvai, Appalukku Appaya, Kanmutri Nindra Karumbe Katri. Like that, this book is a sweetened sugarcane of the convergence of scientific thought and trying to explain how Brahman can be understood from the scientific way of inquiry. But there is a limit to that. The real understanding comes not from that scientific way of inquiry, but transcending that to a more intuitive way. With this, I thank the opportunity of Anush to do this honors, and thank you, sir.
I request the chief guest and the guest speakers to come to the dais. In the meantime, I'd like to mention a few more people we missed out before. Mr. M.A. Pandian from Pandian Paper Company, Chennai. Mr. Venkat from Jayam and Company. And Mrs. Bhavani from Vivad Print Media. I now request our
On behalf of Raman and Raman Private Limited Kumbakonam, I am presenting the shawl to not L. Gopalan, Einstein Gopalan.
I heard ancient.
to our chairman, because City Union Bank is our bank. ஆனால் நாங்கள் வந்து நம்ம பேங்க்ல எங்க பேங்க் இருந்தாலும்
I now request the chairman to release the book. I now request our second guest speaker, Mr. Venkat Ramanan, to provide his views. I'm sorry, I request the chairman to say a few words first.
Sri Gopalan, Anush Gopalan, Dr. Srinivasan, Sri Venkatramanan, Muthukrishnan and other dignitaries present here. Good evening to you. It's a elite gathering. Persons with a lot of knowledge and who believe in Vedas and our culture are present here. I'm extremely happy to be among you. In fact, today morning we have the branch managers conference. Having served in the bank for almost 42 years, I told the MD that this year I'm not going to talk on the targets and achievements. I would like to have a talk on ethics and integrity, and morning I delivered a lecture on ethics and integrity. In fact, I have quoted from Kautilya and others. Why I wanted to make that is, today the fast life is changing everybody. We have lost the rich tradition and culture we have. That's why I was a bit worried and I wanted to reach with the message today. And morning I spent about 2 hours on ethics and integrity. Today evening I am attending this meeting, which makes me more happy. Rightly touched upon I'm a student of mathematics. Quantum mechanics or quantum physics is one of the toughest subjects in the mathematics and physics, I know as a student of mathematics. And the author has done it, combining Vedic thoughts, our Vedas. In fact, Veda comes from the word with means to know. The Vedagallam kantunarnda unmaigal dana oya. It's not done by one rishi or somebody else. After several years of tapas, they have brought these Vedas. Unfortunately, it has not been properly understood, and persons like Gopalan, who has got a lot of scientific background, coming out with a book like this, combining the science and Vedas and the old tradition, I think it will slowly go to the next generation, which is the need of the hour. In fact, I happened to one of former director, Mr. Jayaraman from Tanjavur, I don't know, he's one of the leading advocates. He was a member of the Saraswati Magal. Once I happened to go through a book which he was going through in the rail. We were traveling together. I was trying to get the book back and I could not get it. It was a book written by a foreign Britisher on Kundalini Yoga. That was the first book written on Kundalini Yoga, in fact. I could not get, I was trying to get it and I gone through the preface. He was a judge. He was trying to impose the punishment of death penalty to a group of persons, which included a sannyasi. And he was not afraid of, and the judge was perplexed. When the judge questioned him, he said, I know what is going to happen. I am not going to be convicted, I am going to be acquitted. He said, do you know the future, how can you tell, and other things. And he said, I can tell your future, your wife is going to be assassinated by your brother, your wife and son. He was a bit afraid. Those days the letters cannot go to Britain and went by ship for about 3 weeks later. Before that he requested, don't curse my family, you tell me, is it going to happen? He said, it is going to happen. Please help me, don't do that. Okay, I will put in a word to your wife and son and prevent him so that they can escape from the attempt. This was the assurance given by the sannyasi, who actually was in jail. It happened, his letter went there. Before that, the wife, another letter came after 3 or 4 weeks. There, you sent one sannyasi in right time. It helped me. Your brother wanted to attempt me on the murder and trying to kill us. Unfortunately, we escaped because of the sannyasi you sent. And he narrated how the sannyasi looked like. It is more or less similar to the person. He was perplexed. He went to the jail and found out whether the sannyasi was there. And of course, it was the preface in the book, and he was there. Now I am there in the jail and he verified the records. And finally, he said, I went to England. How you can go? And he was perplexed. And the case went. After that, he was acquitted. And later on, the judge denounced. They came to become sannyasi and became a disciple of that sannyasi and learned Kundalini Yoga and wrote the first book on Kundalini Yoga. Why I am telling is, we don't, anything foreign we feel something good. That is the attitude that, even in the economic downturn, I can say that how India helped is, fortunately we have certain virtues and cultures. Nearly 35% of our GDP is being saved because somehow or other we feel we have to save something for our generation. We don't like to spend for ourselves, go away. We want to give it something to our kids. That help us. That has helped us from downtown. Another thing is, even the CID, the recent CID affair, the current account deficit, the country is facing, NRI money is coming. Why NRI money is coming? Because they respect India and they send money to their parents. If they don't have that attitude, if they like to have the attitude what Americans or Westerners are going to have, like disregarding the parents, spend the money will not come to India. The current account deficit will go up. Fortunately, the tradition and culture are helping us. We should not leave the tradition and culture, good tradition and culture. People like Gopalan's, this book definitely will help to understand that we have rich things. Even if as a student of mathematics, if you look at the Grahanangala Pambu Pudikirungranga, if you talk to youngsters, how a snake will swallow sun and moon. If you take RF, I think engineers can understand RF factor, 93 millions, this 9 crore 30 lakhs millions miles from here, India, the sun is there, and 2 lakhs 40,000. And the size, if you put it in RF factor, if you put even the sun as in the lemon size, the moon size will be like kadugu mari vandurum, idu vandu oru molagu mari irukum. You put a diagonal over it, it will be a shadow cone will be like a snake's tail. Even we say Ragu, Kedu or Chaya grass, there is no grass. In Western they say Gamma and Sigma. See, actually we have found out the astronomy much better than the Westerners. Pambu Padikiran Sonang, but they have not explained it. The shadow cone is like a snake's tail. When it comes into the contact, we get the. So they have not explained it. We ridicule our own, right? Yes, already we don't have a faith in our own science. So definitely we are much richer in all traditions, culture and everything. We have to bridge that. The generations like Mr. Gopalan must take it to the next generations. And definitely this will go a long way. This I have gone through the book, this holograms, or everything as trying to explain. I think I'm normally a fast reader. This book I tried to go through that, but I could not. I have to go through it again. Because one simple reading this book cannot be understood. It will take some time. And I don't know, of course, I think he has done a good exercise. I have gone through that, but yet we have to go through, because I know at least mathematics figure, and at least I can understand what is quantum mathematics or anything like that. Newton or Ramanujam's theory or all those things. Yet it needs time to go through. Once we go through that, definitely has given a lot of answers to what is given. Even these intuitive effects or something like that, Ramanujam or anything like that. Even we have seen our own teachers. You please understand, those days I have teachers who used to come, the Sharma or somebody else started talking about Shakespeare. Never referred the book, he goes on citing it. He knows the entire Shakespeare, this Tempest or Hamlet. He never referred the book. And even Tamil teachers talking in Kamba Ramayana, he will not refer the book, he will go on talk about Krishnamurti, was a disciple of Kivaja. He was my Tamil professor. He never referred the book. He goes on talking about Kamba Ramayana one by one. Such is the power of the memory. Memory power was, we never practice it. We have got power. Definitely somehow or other we are trying to go for a fast life. We have power. Our mind has got the power. That has also been explained in this book. Definitely, I think he has done a very good exercise. And I respect him. In fact, my pranams to you, sir, for all you have done. And it's a good book. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. See, the bankers, I get sometimes, we get into some forums where we may not fit into it. I don't know how far I fit into it. In fact, I have been invited, invited for a meet துறவிகள் மாநாடு கடலூரில் என்னை கூப்பிட்டாங்க. ஆனால் எல்லாரும் ஒரே காவி வச்சு போட்டு உட்காந்துருக்கா. நான் ஒரு 5-6 பேர் தான் உட்காந்துருக்கேன். என்னை வந்து they asked me to inaugurate then I said, உங்களெல்லாம் விட நாங்கள் தான் முதல் உண்மையான துறவியே அப்படின்னா. Everybody was astonished when I said, we look at the money as a commodity, not as our own. We just look it away. We never think the money is ours. That is the attitude we develop, definitely. Really, I'm happy to be here because some forums we go there. I am associated with so many forums, but forums like this definitely give me some good thoughts and good companions like you. Thank you very much, sir.
His viewers by saying only 1 minute. Sorry for the interruption. What is written in Vedas and also scriptures, if he had followed in the ancient days, we would have made several Einsteins, not one or two, several Einsteins. I'll prove it when I present my in the stage. But what I am saying is, if you follow, if you really understand the Vedic content in its correct perspective, then the future is in our hands. So we can make several elements which are, that is the
I now request Dr. Avius to talk about mythology, and the truth.
Respected Lakshmi Narayan and Gopalan and the children and our chairman today and the dignitaries on the dais. I am the neurologist perspective. I'll be just first touching on that, then come to the myth. So the first 8 minutes will be on the brain, mind and consciousness, and the next 7 minutes will be the bridging the gap between, I always say, science blends with religion. Science does not end and then the religion starts. We all know that, I'm going straight to the topic because we have listened to the lighter side of our chairman, because in always in life, the right drives the left more. He was the right person in the right place, in the right perspective. And he is driving my left brain to talk to you in an excellent way. Because the left is always the verbal, the right is always visual. Right is an art, the left is verbal. Now I'm going to talk on the verbal side of the brain. You have the universal consciousness, from which you get the unqualified consciousness. Every one of us in our waking state, just before going to the sleep, you don't feel that you are getting into the sleep. You just sleep. When you get up from the sleep, you don't feel that you are getting up from the sleep. After that 50 milliseconds duration, the whole memory system operates. You are what you are. That less than 50 milliseconds is called the unqualified consciousness. If this unqualified consciousness is practiced daily, you can achieve the greatest siddhic powers of the entire world. That's what everybody believes in. Unfortunately, the moment we get up, we say, you're just in the hurry in the morning. And in the night when you go to bed, whatever you want. It's because we always live in the past, which is always causing worry. We look for the future, which is of what we call it as anxiety. The present is a present and it is a pleasant, but we don't agree with that. From the unqualified consciousness, the next step is the qualified consciousness comes. That's where we are. I am so and so. Once the qualified consciousness starts, you are into the realm of memory. The qualified consciousness gives you the first feeling that I am. Then the mind starts. The mind is a web of thought, in which the first strand of thought is I exist. Without that I, there is no mind at all. As somebody asks what is mind, there is no matter. When somebody asks what is matter, never mind. So this is the concept under which we are all working, because we are driven by mind. Every one of us, we are basically driven by mind. And what does the mind do? It interacts with the brain. Brain cannot act with the mind, but the mind can act with the brain. And this brain, through its 5 special senses, acts in the akasa, or the exterior, through the 5 special senses. This is a fact of science. This consciousness, everybody wants to know, because without consciousness there is no world. When there is no world, then the real problem starts for us. Then we must know what we are. What is consciousness? Has somebody defined it? No. When you come to the point of stake of sciences, consciousness, I'll just tell you, because these 2 points you must remember, every one of us. The basic concept of consciousness includes awareness. I am going to come to this awareness because that is the missing link in all our routine activity, and that is a connecting link for which Lakshminarayan and Gopalan has taken such a beautiful step and given us an easy way of understanding. Now this consciousness has awareness. The present point of time, there is no scientific method by which you can analyze awareness. It's beyond science. This has been accepted by principle. Whereas the 5 facets of consciousness have been analyzed beautifully by our scientists. First is the consciousness and self-awareness. I am including it. As a pure scientist, and somebody remarked, consciousness is a trick of the memory and awareness is a delusion of language. But that's wrong. That's what our ancient people have already given us the wisdom. But being awareness away, I don't want to touch awareness because it is beyond me, and beyond me means what I say is beyond science. Consciousness has got present, past and future. Without our consciousness, because the pure science is only every second is a new second, FPS or CGS system. Present, past and future is consciousness. I am aware of my own consciousness. We call it as introspection. Or third is, I am having my consciousness and self-awareness, and because of that I have the free will to execute the third function of consciousness. The fourth function of consciousness is all the 5 special senses are completely absorbed in my own consciousness. Otherwise, light will come, sound will come, touch will come. We can't enjoy every bit of it without awareness, without self-awareness. So the 5 special senses, they are coming to me. That we call it as unity of sensations to the human existence. There is no point in having unity of sensation when it is not identified with body and the identity. So continuity, unity, identity, free will and introspection of their own consciousness forms a scientific study. This is not a brain lecture. So I leave the 5 out and come to the point awareness, which is beyond science, and hence we come into our ancient people. What have they talked about the awareness? Ancient seers, they said there are myths. Myths means a negative connotation, and that is equivalent to mithya. Our ancient rishis, sheer practicing the yogic methods and as well as the Gayatri and everything, they separated the myth from Sat. Sat is the truth. Myth, that is the truth, prevailing at a particular point of time, is with regard to a frame of reference. Without that, there is no myth. When it is Sat, is absolute and it is perfect beyond the words and symbol. Because whenever there is a word and symbol, there is always a limitation in your thinking process. So Sat is beyond the word, beyond the symbol, which is equivalent to awareness of the brain, which we are all not able to explain it in words, but we can definitely feel it. We can be definitely aware of it, but we cannot express it. Any amount of expression in words and symbol is an expression of that, but not the truth of it. So ancient Greeks, instead of calling it as myth and myth, they called it as mythos. They divided them as mythos and logos. Mythos was nothing but what they call it as art, whereas logos is for science and mathematics. They separated them, science and mathematics, And they started explaining how, but none of them could explain why. They can explain how the child is born. They can apply beautifully how the moon comes, how the sun comes, radioactivity. The world has exploded in physics, chemistry and science. But why should the sun come? Why should the moon come? What is its relevance to our existence? Science comes to a standstill. That is the time they use the methods. And they said the art of knowing the inevitability of the consciousness, which gives you the purpose, the meaning, and the validation of existence. Because in pure reasoning, we have 4 steps. First step is exposure. Second step is experience. Third step is knowledge. Fourth step is wisdom, which comes dance with it. Applying that particular 4 steps into our daily routine, when you apply it, it is classically the exposure. What do you mean by exposure? Exposure of a book like this, Lakshmi Narayana and Gopalan. Exposure of into the basic tenets of physics. Exposure into the real art of Gayatri Mantra. The real art of yogic methods. He has beautifully synthesized how these 2 processes can help us to understand the basic awareness. Once you tap the inevitable force of awareness, the whole is, I call it as the energy. That's not a kinetic energy. It's a full of energy mediation. Then how is it related to our Vedic concept? Vedic concept is very simple. One is Purusha. Narayana is in deep slumber without knowing who he is in absolute sleep. That's a period of, I call it as Pralaya. That Pralaya thinking, and immediately he gets a feeling. That feeling results in sprouting of Brahma. And this Brahma finally creates. Before the creation, the Prakriti starts. Prakriti, in terms of Tantric philosophy, Prakriti is female and Purusha is male. Such a beautiful construction of male and female. But if you apply to the brain, they have already stated that the Purusha is right hemisphere and the left hemisphere is lady. It's also proved by science today that CT PET analysis clearly showed left dominant is the lady and the right dominant is a male. But the perfection of it, because male is a combination of 60-40. He has got 60% androgen and 40% estrogen. A lady has got 60% estrogen and 40% androgen. So it's a combination of the factor already explained. And this Prakriti has come as a lady, has come from the Purusha. Now, what is the relevance to his thinking? This energy, the Purusha is matter. Prakriti is energy. This matter and energy, they are existing together. There is nothing like creation. If you look into the Vedas, there is nothing created. It is already existing. Then what is the reason for awareness? Awareness is to distinguish between this Purusha and as well as Prakriti. That is, you are able to understand the awareness part of it. The same thing with Jivatma like us. It is the awareness of separating the world from us. That awareness is the point. Suppose you are able to have a communication with the external universe or the external or universal consciousness, or you can call it by truth, or you can call it by light, whatever way you want to call it. But when you want to do that, can you do by inductive methods? It's impossible. This has been beautifully highlighted by my first speaker who gave a nice talk. Inductive methods, you spend billions and trillions of dollars, you come to a standstill. An intuitive method is an answer. And that intuitive method, he has given this through Gayatri Mantra. We have all the youngsters, they now lose faith in Gayatri Mantra and does not do it. But if they start, Gayatri Mantra is not for A class. It's for A, B, C, D class. It's for male and female. And it is actually very, very useful mantra by which you can explore the universe. It is the key for unlocking the Akasha. And it is the beginning of the success story of our Indians. It's always believed that the textile industry gave power to British. The railway industry gave to United States. Intellectual is going to give the country's greatest push in this century, and we are going to be #1 in the field of sciences, including art. With this, I finish my speech. Thank you. I'm indeed extremely thankful for Lakshmi Narayan Gopalan sir. He has really done a wonderful work. It is the science of the art, sir, your book. It is the scientific determinism versus humanism. You have touched both. You have touched the right and the left, but you are always on the right side, sir, and you will be always right. Thank you.
I'd like to strengthen 1 minute his argument. Brahman is a very good businessman because the total energy of the entire universe of ours, like this many universes, is zero. We agree to it. It is zero. With zero capital, he is doing such a lot of business on 10 to the power of 500 universes, not one or two. You understand? With the help of Gayatri and yoga. You understand? This is
I now request our next guest speaker, Mr. Venkat Ramanan, to provide his views.
Salutations to my Guru, Sringeri Jagat Guru, Abhinava Vidyatirtha Swamigal, and Kanchi Mahaperiva, who advised me to go and pray with Sringeri Periva, and my Kula Devata, Pani Dandayatapani, and my Ishta Devata, Tirukadavu Abhirami, Sri Balasubramanian, and Mr. E.V. Srinivasan, my close friend for 15 years, and Sri Lakshmi Narayan Gopalan, and Mr. Anush Gopalan, and Mr. Muthakrishna, and those who are elder in the audience, in knowledge and age, my namaskarams to you all. Those among the audience who are young in age and more in knowledge, my namaskarams to you, and to the rest, my asirvadams. With this, I plan to proceed my speech. As the subject that is being given is extremely complex, though it sounds very easy, which in fact is not. Mr. Lakshmi Narayana has made a sweeping study of the entire Indian philosophical system and also higher theories of mathematics and theory of relativity, which is very difficult to unravel. So, with great difficulty, I have wrangled about 30 minutes. I promise that I will not bore you. I hope I will be able to complete within that time. Considering the nature of the subject, I will be touching upon Vedas and also one of the equally ancient language, Tamil, to strengthen the argument set forth by the Vedas as also by Mr. Lakshmi Narayana. Because what Mr. Lakshmi Narayana has written is what has been divulged in Vedas, and the God has chosen him an instrument to speak on his behalf. So, with this, let me start my speech. Sri Vidyam Sivabhama Bhaganilayam Krinkara Mantrojhalam Sri Chakrangida Bindamadhyavasadim Srimad Sadhanagim Srimad Shanmuga Vignarajanim Srimad Jaganmoginim Meenakshim Pranadosmi Santadamukam Karunya Varamrite. This is a sloka of Adi Sankaracharya on Meenakshi Pancharatna. Normally I begin my lecture with this stotra because my Ishta Devata is, though Tirukadavu Abhirami, I respect this sloka because it has got the entire truth of philosophy, entire truth of Tantra Shastra, Mantra Shastra, Pranava, and also what Mr. Lakshminarayan has written today. I will explain towards the end of it because now saying that will be juxtaposing it a little earlier. Now, before I proceed on this book has three essential components as I see it. Number one part is the basic theories as we of date know in physics. And number two, what are the ancient thoughts of our rishis in this subject? Number three, how are they connected? And four, how does Gayatri Mantra fit into this? And the fifth is, how has Mr. Lakshmi Narayana achieved all this? This I will try to explain it in very simple terms without less of jargon, and with Tamil also last about 5 minutes to explain some Tamil sloka. Now let us see what are the theories that are known and touted to us as very, I'm quite certain, and which we go mad, which we are mad about it, as Mr. Muthukrishnan put it very nicely, we believe everything that comes from West. In fact, some information which I'm going to give you will be shocking, and many people have taken it for granted. Many people from the audience may question me. Number one, many of us do believe, and some of the British authors and also Indians also do write, that the Shivalinga is the phallic symbol of Lord Shiva, and the Avadiyar is the vulva of Goddess. Sheer nonsense. I wrote an article, and this was a myth everybody is believing. And you find even Shiva temple people coming and explaining, and people start telling you it is quoted in Shiva Purana, it is in Linga Purana. Now, unfortunately for them, I have read the originals. And I found out in 1863, this book was specifically written to divide the Hindus, to disrespect Hinduism by the British and propagated. Similarly, many ideas are floating. Those who are interested can visit my blog site. I have about 2 million readers that refer. Now, coming to this point, what is so-called science? I'm not denigrating, I'm just putting forth. Now, the basic principles of science. Let us take physics. Physics normally rests on 3 principles, which is touted as being found by Newton. I would not say found, it is discovered. Nothing is ever invented, it is only discovered. Now, what is the first principle? An object continues to be at a state of rest or inertia until impelled by one force. The first one I want to ask you is, if something were to stand as an idichapudi in Tamil, unless you kick it, it doesn't move. Now, my simple question, as my grandson would ask, who gave that push? Science has no answer. Second, the rate of acceleration is directly proportional to the force exerted. Since this axiom comes the first one, the same logic applies.
The first principle says either it is at rest or in uniform motion.
Yes.
You did not ignore that.
Yeah.
So do not belittle science.
No, I am not belittling. I'll explain it. Now,
Not Newton at that.
yeah. Now, I am not belittling. I'll be explaining it a little later. I'm just making it, I'm not making it too technical an aspect of it. I will explain it. The third one, for every action, there is an equivalent and opposite reaction. So, when you have all these 3 principles, what has happened? Science basically rests on 2 principles of nature. 2 assumptions. One is law of causality of nature and the law of uniformity of nature. Now, what does this cause mean? A cause produces an effect. And what is effect? An effect could also be a result of more than one causes. So, one cause can produce more effects, and one effect may be the result of many a cause. Then how do we interrelate them? Shankaracharya explains it in many ways. In simple terms, the things in the world happen the way they are. Your mind as a computer, as a mind, as a CPU, it receives the messages as a folder, it puts them in the different folders and keep. Now what happens? Why does it happen? Because human mind cannot perceive certain things without a frame of reference of space or time. You remove the 2 goggles. So can you think of any thought without referring to a space, without referring to time? Please do try at home. Now there is no thought is possible, no action is possible without you referring to space or time. Now I'll give you some more analogies for you to think. I'm just making you to think. I'm not going to give any conclusion. No, there are 2 paradoxes called the Zeno's paradox. This was in 400 BC. Number 1. Now let us take a straight line between A and B. Now when you have an object, let us take an object which travels from A to B. Let us call it as X. If X were to travel from A to B, X has to cover half the distance of AB, call it C. If X has to travel to C from A, it has to cover half the distance of AC. Then D, then E, then F. Now, physics also gives you the reflection, space is infinitely divisible, which means the object X will keep on traveling from A infinitely. In common word, it will never reach B. The second one. Let us assume the distance from Bangalore from Madras to Bangalore for calculation purpose is 500 miles per hour. Say, let us say we travel at a speed. I am not using velocity, it's not a scientific form. Velocity, we'll use it later. 500 miles per hour you reach in 1 hour. You take it to 1000, half an hour. 2000, you take 15. Then 7.5, 3 points on the way. Then you would reach a particular speed at which time you would not even live to Madras. The scientists tried to answer this question by stating that if an object were to get a velocity or a speed higher than that of light, it no longer remains matter. But unfortunately, that has been proved wrong. Again, you got quasars, you got photons, you got mesons. So many things start coming. So this is one paradox which we keep. No, please, everybody is free to disagree. I am just putting forth my goal. Now the science rests on two things. As I said, law of uniformity. Now, when you say one thing produces more than two effects, how do you relate? Concomitant causes. Again, it goes on the same principle. Then you have a law of uniformity of nature. I'll put it very simply. Till yesterday, 2H2 plus O2 has produced water. Now, my simple question is, what is the guarantee it will produce it tomorrow? As Mr. A.V. has put it, what is the guarantee the sun will rise tomorrow? So, we do not know. This is the theory which we have. Now, let us look at it at the other level. Now, we go to the atomic particles. When you look at the atom, what has happened at the atom level? Previously, we used to believe that we had atoms, electrons, protons, and neutrons. Now, we know electrons have got negative charge and proton positive and neutron being neutral. Now, these things keep on moving against each other, and that's all. Now, what has been found out right now, when they keep on moving, please remember one point. When an object moves, it also creates energy. You take a tennis ball and then you put it and then dip it in water and spin it. It produces energy. When a thing is in motion, it travels. Because of the motion and it travels, because of the momentum, if I use a scientific term, it also creates additional energy. Where does that additional energy go? One. And the second point, now you have got electrons and protons moving around the nucleus. When they are moving in a set pattern. Now, in the micro level, this is the point. Then at the macro level, how did they find in the astrophysics? When they found Pluto, what did they say? They found something else it was going beyond the orbit. Then they found out another one was pulling the gravitation, whatever it is. Now the point is, somebody is pulling something. In the same way, at the subatomic level, when these two things are moving, the additional energy which we have, what happens is, now the quantum comes in. They say, you got certain planes where the energy fields are created by all this and they control the behavior at the subatomic level. At the universe level, let us look at it this way. Now, when we start talking about Big Bang theory, a ball was there, it got exploded, a bigger mass started attracting more mass, then it became dense, then the universe got formed, and then you had all gravitation. The first question is, how did the first mass came into being? And the second theory you have, theory of expanding universe. Universe keeps on expanding. The simple question is, if it keeps on expanding, where is the edge? Then Einstein has started talking about the edge of the universe, then came the theory of relativity. This is at the astrophysical level. Now what in essence means, the certain behavior which you have is not something which science cannot satisfactorily answer. Because certain axioms we make in science cannot explain, they simply tell you, you have to accept it. But when it comes to the question of philosophy or religion, we do not accept it, we start questioning it. When you say you assume Brahman, we don't assume, you have to prove it. But when you say this is this, you accept it in science. I am not belittling. What I am saying is, a contribution between philosophy and science is for the benefit of the mankind. Then how does this come? When the expanding comes, universe comes, and the edge of the universe, then the theory of relativity starts coming. When the quantum comes, you know what happens? When the subatomic particles at the nucleus level keep on revolving, two factors come. One factor is, the longer the wavelength, the lesser the energy output of that particle. And if the wavelength is shorter, the energy output is longer, the energy output is less. Now where does this energy go? These energies are accommodated in quantum mechanics. And what quantum says is that depending on the coordinates in which these fields exist, there exist lot of planes where the universe exists. These form the multiverses concept in today's astrophysics and quantum theory. Now, as of now, they have proved 11 points of reference as universes being in existence are already posted with necessary documentary inputs. Now the question is, they already stated there are 14 and they have found out only 11. So this is the level at which quantum is there. Now what quantum in essence is that there are certain universes which are in existence simultaneously at the same time. Which means, to put it in common words term, Ramayana has happened yesterday, Ramayana is happening today, and Ramayana will happen tomorrow. It is a paradox of time. Now, this is the area in which the whole thing is existing. Now, how does this compare with, this is the area where we are operating. When we go and then start questioning them, the question ends there. But whereas in Indian philosophy and the ancient texts, we go further and then start expanding. In astrophysics and then theory of expanding universe, you do find the statement, the entire universe is made up of only 4% of matter and the balance 96% is not known. 96% is what we do not know. This is not what I am saying. Brief history of time by Stephen Hawking, whatever I am saying, I am quoting. Probably I may be wrong like some people, but not in essence. Probably some words technically may be missing, I will give you the reference. Now, out of these 4%, is there any reference in your Indian text? Yes, you do have. Sahasra Sirusha Purusha Sahasraksha Sahasrabhat Sabhumim Vishwato Vrudvaha Adhyadishta Dashangulam 10 inches. The balance is what is being produced. Purusha Sukta. Then Yatyagintit Jagat Dharvam Drishyate Shuyate Viva. This is Narayana Sukta. Now, here they tell you whatever is being produced by the impersonal, indescribable, avaktavya, the Brahman, Parabrahma, Nirguna Brahma, because of which you can't explain it. It just happens. Then again came how the Mahat, Purusha came, Prakriti came, Sparsha Matra, then Mahat, Ahankara, Tanmatra, Panchabhuta, Karmendriyas, Jnanendriyas, the whole universe evolves. This is where the system is there. Now, then one more paradox our people say. Now, as he put it, the total output in the universe is zero. Brahma is playing dice with no investment. Exactly. But there is another way of looking at it. We have two interesting concepts in philosophy. In Indian philosophy, which is totally against Western thought. In India, knowledge is a negative concept in Veda. Removal of ignorance is knowledge. Knowledge is not something you acquire from outside. For a simple reason, if you want to acquire knowledge, there are two sources available. One, you get it from outside. If you already do not have knowledge, to recognize knowledge as such, you will not recognize knowledge. Second is, if you already have knowledge within you, there is no necessity for you to learn. So, with the removal of avidya or nishayans is knowledge. This is a negative. Then similarly, when you take in Indian philosophy, another interesting concept, you will find Rukvediya Ratriya Mantra Sukta. Nobody has got day Sukta because Hindus believe darkness is real. Darkness is the original. Removal of darkness is night. Not the absence of light is darkness. Okay, so because of these fundamental approaches, your total area of logical approach differs, but the end result is the same. Now, when you take all Western system of thought in science, it comes from one dictum. Ex nihilo nihil ficta. Out of nothing, nothing comes. Correct. But Indian philosophy, 180 degrees opposite. Om Purnamada Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vadishyati. Now, you will ask, it is simple. Nonsense. How can you take full out of full and full remains full? But these extremely intelligent gentlemen will agree nothing will come out of nothing. It's a very good scientific thought. But the same thing, full out of full, it's nonsense. I'll explain to you, if you take full out of full, how full remains full? I'll tell you. I am delivering a speech on some subject right now, of which you know very little. When I am delivering what I know, I am giving whatever full from me to you. So you receive that full. Now I have taken that full from me by delivering this lecture. After delivering the lecture, have I become idiot? No, that full remains. So having taken the full out of this full, that full is with you, and this full remains the same. This is your Purnamada Punya. This is not nonsense slokas our people have. Now, these two slokas I have said. Then, what is this relevance he has got? A simple approach, very, very, very simple approach. Now, whatever this is from by Vivekananda. Now, my good friend Mr. AVS was asking me while I was dying into the car, Ramanan, you talk, all of you people talk about this philosophy and Maya. How do you explain Maya and illusion? Now, Mr. Muthukrishnan said, yes, everybody will spend about 100 days and then they will confuse. I see he is honest enough in admitting it. Yes, many people say, I understood. Nobody has understood. And I am sorry, I respect Shankaracharya as the greatest intellect. If you do not, you need not worship him as avatar of Shiva. But sheer intellect, nobody can go somewhere near it. Adi Shankaracharya is a brain where human being can touch. Now, he fails in Mayavada. In Mayavada, when he starts, a very simple question. In Indian philosophy, encourage question, unlike science. If you ask, no, you are an idiot, you should not ask questions. Science. Indian philosophy encourages you. He allows you to criticize. Then people ask him, Shankara, you say, a simple question, Brahman was anadi, timeless. Now, when Maya, then how did the universe come into being, as AVS has explained, to differentiate Maya came. Maya in Indian philosophy at the universal level of ignorance is Maya. Individually it is called Avidya, that's all. So Maya came. Very innocently this man asked, okay, which means if the Maya, do you mean to say it also existed with Brahman? Then Shankara has no other option because differentiation has already come into, yes. Then he says, then in that case, if existence without time is the criteria of Brahman, Maya is also a reality. You are defeated in your argument. Shankara keeps quiet. The same question was put to Swami Vivekananda. He said, I totally agree, nobody can ask you this question. Nobody can answer you this question for a simple reason. It cannot be answered. Second, whatever Adi Shankaracharya has said, please follow 0.1%. If you are done, you will not be here to ask this question. In many of my lectures, people have asked me, sir, can a man know God? Can I know God? My emphatic answer is no. You can never know God because you can only feel Him. Can you know hunger? No. You can feel hunger. Can you feel love for your children or mother? You can feel, but you can never show. பசிக்கிறதுனா பசியை காட்டுன்னா குழந்தை ஊசியை குத்தினா ஊசியை வலி எப்படி இருக்கும் காட்டுன்னா எப்படி சார் காட்டுறது இதுதான் இந்தியன் philosophy சொல்றது. Now the experience, when you say intuition, inductive logic, deductive logic, then again you will find a beautiful parallel in Indian philosophy. Western system goes in deductive logic and inductive logic. Now when you say there is fire, that is wherever there is smoke there is fire. So there is smoke, there is fire. Western philosophy finishes. Indian philosophy, this is only one logic. In Indian philosophy, they take 7 steps. They combine both. Still it is not complete. Intuitive knowledge is the knowledge that gives the result, as Mr. Muthukrishnan has put it. Newton did not go to school. I mean, all great philosophers, they got it only through their flash. All great mathematicians, you take Ramanujan, you take Gregor Mendel, you take everybody. They just got it out of a flash. Now, how good is this in the world? Now, what he is trying to understand, what he is trying to unlock of this, through the system of yoga. Yoga is very simply put, yoga chitta vitti nirodhita. The cessation of the modification of the chitta is yoga. You stop that, then you realize. So, when an object moves in terms of energy, I don't want to touch on it again as Dr. Avis has already spoken. When the energy is created, it has got a rhythm, laya. That laya and tala is represented by Nataraja. Today, for the people who are interested, the only photograph which adorns the CERN laboratory in Geneva is Lord Nataraja's statue, because they understand the significance of his Urdhva Tandava. Now this laya and shruti, when they are combined in terms of coordinating the universe energy, universe gets created. Now, what exactly is universe? What exactly is your body made of? Panchabhutas, what they are made of, what they make in the world, the same Panchabhutas are in your body. So what is the essential difference? The only difference is that you are conditioned by space and time. They are not conditioned by space and time. So essentially, what is in the macrocosm is in the microcosm. The only problem which I feel the science is finding it difficult is, they want to dig for truth outside. Even if you have something outside, there should be a knower. If you understand the knower, the unknown is already known. So they want you to dig deeper. So, in this sense, by knowing yourself, how do you know yourself? Vedanta is big. Not everybody can be a Ramakrishna, not everybody can be a Ramana Maharishi, not everybody a Kanchi Periyava, Shringeri Periyava. A simple solution, Gayatri Mantra. Gayatri, many people think Gayatri is mantra. I am sorry to differ. Gayatri is not a mantra. Gayatri is a chandas. Gayatrim chandasa mata idam brahmajushasana. It is chandas. It is a meter. It is a rhythm. You read the meaning. Now everybody wants, you tell me the meaning. What is it like in the meaning? எப்பொருள் என் அறிவை தூண்டுகிறதோ அப்பொருளே எனக்கு சக்தியை கொடுக்கணும். யோ என்ன மந்திரம் ஆமா. It is not that. It is the chandas. It is the anushtana. It is the way you intern. The way you intern the Gayatri Mantra, it gives the specific power. There are certain rules to do it. Even if you want to admit your child to an LKG, you follow certain rules. But in mantras and tantra sastras and yoga, you will not do. Why should you do it? Why should I follow yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara? Today, including art of living, people say, I'll give you Sudarsana Kriya. Who gave you Sudarsana Kriya? It is your Kriya. Where, I mean, where is Patanjali speaking about this? He doesn't speak. You keep on doing this. Similarly, pranayama, every fellow with a bird, with an orange robe says, I am doing a dhyana yoga. Somebody was saying, Mama, நான் daily 20 நிமிஷம் meditation பண்றேன் மாமியெல்லாம். நான் சொன்னேன் அதெல்லாம் வேண்டாமா. நீ 20 செகண்ட் பண்ணா ரமண மகரிஷி ஆயிடுவேன். You are attempting. நீ உட்காந்து இப்படி கண்ணை மூக்கில் பார்த்தா தூக்கம் வருது. நீ யோகம் நினைச்சுக்கிற. மத்தியானம் சாப்பிட்டோன்னா 1 மணிக்கு தயிர் சாப்பிட்டு படுத்துனா ஒரு மாதிரி தூக்கம் வரும். யோகம் இல்லை தூக்கம். இதை போய் பராக்கம் பண்ணிட்டு தப்பே இல்லாமல் யமா நியமம் ஆசனம் 3 இல்லாமல் பிராணாயாமம் பண்ணக்கூடாது. 3 மூக்கு படி போட்டு இப்படியா உறிஞ்சிருது. அதுக்கு ரேஷியோ இருக்கு இல்லையா? 1:2:4 கிடையாது. நீங்கள் மூச்சு இழுத்து விடுங்க. யாரோ ஒருத்தர் இருக்காரு, ஒரு பாபா ராம்தேவ் யாரோ மூக்கு இப்படி இழுத்து இப்படி விடாங்க. மூச்சு விட மூச்சு தான் போகும். இது என்ன இருக்குது? இதெல்லாம் பண்ணுறவளுக்கு ஜஸ்ட் காஷனிங் பீப்புள். யோகத்துக்கெல்லாம் பதஞ்சலி தான் அத்தாரிட்டி. அவர் சொன்னது பண்ணி தான் நம்ம பண்ணணும். நடுவில் பண்ணினா 2 ப்ராப்ளம் கேரண்டி. நிச்சயமாக பேக் பெயின் வரும், போன் பெயின் வரும். எந்த டாக்டர் போனாலும் க்யூர் பண்ண மாட்டேன்னா தெரியாது. இதை விட அட்வான்ஸ் ஸ்டேஜ் பைத்தியம் பிடிக்கும். டாக்டருக்கு அவன் வந்து சொல்லிட்டு இருப்பான் சிலோஃப்ரினியாமல் ஒரு பேஷண்ட் கூட ட்ரீட் ஆகுது. ஸோ திஸ் யோகா, this synchronization of energy levels brings in what is in you and it comes. And without going through the Ashtanga Yoga, Gayatri Mantra can deliver results with 24 aksharas. Now about the book. This book is not for the feeble-minded. And this is not a book for the prurient. And this is not something very revealing. This is for people with serious intention who dare to question science. If you want to run away from science, if you want to be intimidated by science, please don't go. Have an open mind. If science is, this is not against science. This is not against religion. You go with an open mind, see both the sides, and choose what is good. This I will quote Lord Krishna. He talks about 640 sloka. 66th sloka, he is asking, 65th, Arjuna எல்லாம் சொல்லிட்டேன், அவனுக்குலாம் சந்தேகம் எல்லாம் தெரிஞ்சுருத்தாங்க. அவன் தெரிஞ்சிருத்து அப்படிங்கிறான். சரின்னு சொல்லிட்டு பதில் சொல்கிறார். நான் சொன்னதெல்லாம் கேட்டேன் இல்லையா? கேட்டுவிட்டு உனக்கு எது சரிப்படுறதுனோ அதை பண்ணுங்கிற. இதுதான் கிருஷ்ணன். இது அதாவது உங்களுக்கு எது சரின்னு பண்ணுறதை பண்ணுங்க. பசிச்சா நீங்கள் சாப்பிடணும். சாதம் இருக்குன்னா இந்த சாதத்தில் உப்பு இல்லாமல் சாப்பிடாத. எனக்கு என்னாச்சு? இப்போ ஏவிஎஸ்ட்டு போய் எனக்கு உடம்பு சரியில்லை டாக்டர்கிட்ட போனால் வேர் ஆர் யூ குவாலிஃபைட், ஹவு டு யூ நோ? மருந்து சாப்பிட்டா பதி முடிச்சாங்க. சிம்பிள் ஆன்சர். See, this is the approach of philosophy, that of a doctor to a patient. Doctor gives you the medicine if you want. Take it, it's good for you. If you don't, at your peril. டாக்டர் ஃபீஸ் மட்டும் கொடுத்து போயிடுங்க இல்லையா? தமிழில் 2 கோட்டை சொல்லிவிட்டு எனக்கு டைம் அப்படியே மணி அடிச்சுட்டு 5 நிமிஷம் இருக்குது, அதுக்குள்ளே முடிச்சிடுறேன். 2 பாட்டு. ஒன்று வந்து பழைய பாட்டு ஒன்று, இன்னொன்று வந்து புதுசு. பழசு என்னன்னு கேட்டாங்க, திருமுறை. மரத்தை மறைத்தது மாமத யானை, மரத்தில் மறைந்தது மாமத யானை. அதாவது வந்து ஒரு மரம் இருக்கும். ஒரு மரம் இருக்கும்போது இந்த கல்லை கண்டா நாயம் காணும், அதுதான் அர்த்தம். அது நம்ம இல்லைன்னா ரோட்டில் கல் போகும்போது அடிக்க போகிறோம், கல்லை காணும்னு நினச்சிருக்கேன். கிடையாது. ஒரு கல்லில் வந்து ஒரு சிலையை பண்ணி நாயை பார்த்தா நாயே நினச்சிருக்கோம் நாய் இருக்குது, கல்லை பார்க்க மாட்டான். இந்த கல் வைக்கிற சிற்பி பார்த்தா ஃபஸ்ட் கிளாஸ் கல்லாக இருக்கும். அதே போல் ஒரு மரத்தை பார்த்தாக்க யானை ஒழிஞ்ச மாதிரி ஒருத்தன்ருக்கு, அவன் மரத்தை விட்டுறான். மரத்தை பார்த்தோம் யானையை விட்டுறான். இதே போல் பரத்தை மறைத்தது முதல் பூதம்ங்கிறது பிரம்மன். அது உலகத்துக்குள்ளே மறையிறது. நீ அதை பார்க்கும்போது உலகம் மறைஞ்சிருந்து ஆதிசங்கரர் சொல்ல. இதை காயத்ரியை சொல்லும்போது 5 பாதமாக சொல்லி அதுக்கு முன்னால் பிராணாயாம அபியாசங்கள் ஐ போஸ்டட் ஹவு டு டூ இட். அண்ணா புக்கை பார்த்துக்கோங்க, படிச்சுட்டு அதை ப்ரொசீஜர் பண்ணால். இதனால் ஏவிஎஸ் நல்ல கேள்வியெல்லாம் கேட்டார். சரியா இவ்வளோதான் பேசின்னு வரையே இதை படித்தா என்ன ஆகும், நீ பண்ணியிருக்கியா, உனக்கு என்ன ஆச்சுன்னு கேட்டேன். நான் பதில் சொன்னேன், ஒரே ஒரு இதுதான், என் கிரிட்டிக் நீட் நாட் பி ஆர்டிஸ்ட். நம்ம சொல்லிட்டு போனோம், நீ என்ன பிரம்மத்தை உனங்கன்னு கேட்டேன். அது சரிடா, உலகத்தில் வந்து செத்து போவங்களுக்கு முன்னால் வெளிக்கும் நாங்கள் நீ செத்து போயிருக்கான்னு கேட்க முடியும். எல்லாரும் சொல்கிறோம். ஸோ வாட் ஐ எம் சேயிங், ஏஜ் எவ்ரிதிங் யூ கேனாட் லேர்ன் பை எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் இல்லையா. அடுத்து ஒரு சின்ன எக்ஸாம்பிள் சொன்னேன். ஒருத்தரை பார்த்தாலும் ஒருத்தருக்கு ஏன் சார் பிடிக்கிறது, ஒருத்தருக்கு ஏன் பிடிக்காமல் போடுறது. லைஃப்பில் கோ இன்சிடென்ட், இங்கிலீஷ் வந்து கோ இன்சிடென்ட்ஸை கோ இன்சிடென்ட்ஸும் அதுங்களாம் மாற்றிட்டு இருக்கு. அவன் இஷ்டம் தானே, சம்ஸ்கிருதத்தில் இந்த மாதிரி விளையாட முடியாது, சொன்னால் மண்டல் அடிப்பான். கோ இன்சிடென்ட் ரெண்டு விஷயம் நடக்குது. இப்போ ஒரு சின்ன எக்ஸாம்பிள் சொல்கிறேன் லைட்டாக. இப்போது இந்த காலத்துலலாம் எப்படி கேட்டதுனாக்கா, இந்த லவ் பண்ணுறதுங்கிறது ரொம்ப தமாஷா இருக்குது. அதாவது வந்து 2ஆவது நாள் லவ், 3ஆம் நாள் கல்யாணம், 4ஆம் நாள் டைவர்ஸ். அது நமக்கு தெரியல, அது கொஞ்சம் வயசாகிடுத்து போட்டிருக்கு, அது வேறு விஷயம். இப்போ லவ்னு ஒருத்தரை பார்த்த உடனே, லவ்ங்கிறத பற்றி ஒருத்தரை நம்ம பார்க்கணும் மீட்டிங்கில், புதுசாக அவளை பார்க்கணும், அவளை பார்த்தா பேசணும் போல இருக்கும். இதில் வந்து ஒரு நான் ஃபிலாசபி கொண்டு வரல, நீங்கள் உங்களே அனலைஸ் பண்ணிங்க. சில பேர் பார்த்தா பாவம் நன்னா இருப்பான், டீசெண்டாக இருப்பான், அவனை பார்த்தாலே வேண்டாம்னு தோணும். ஏன்? அதே போல் ஒரு பொண்ணை லவ் பண்ணுறான்னு வச்சுக்கோங்களேன், கல்யாணத்துக்கு முன்னால் மாஞ்சி கல்யாணம் காதலிப்பான். கல்யாணம்னு பொண்டாட்டி அவனை பார்த்தாலே எரிச்சிடும். ஏன்? இங்கிலீஷ் வந்து ஃபெமிலியாரிட்டி ஃபீல்ஸ், அது ஒன்றும் கிடையாது. சிம்பிள் பாயிண்ட்டு சார். என்ன பண்ணுறான், இந்த என் பையன் பொண்ணுக்கெல்லாம் பொண்ணு பார்க்க போனால் வேவ் லென்த்து செட் ஆகும்பா. அது என்ன வேவ் லென்த்துன்னு எனக்கு தெரியல. நம்ம வேவ் லென்த் இருந்தால் கல்யாணம் ஆகிருக்காது. என்ன ஆகுது, யூ காட் செர்டன் ஃப்ரீக்வன்சி அட் விச் யுவர் மென்டல் தாட்ஸ் வைப்ரேட். எடுத்தவா அந்த லெவலில் வைப்ரேட் ஆகும்போது மேட்ச் ஆச்சுன்னா உங்கள் 2 பேருக்கும் பிடிக்கிறது. இதான் கண்ணை பார்த்த கண்ணோடு கண் ஓகேங்கிறது அதுதான். அது சஸ்டெயின் ஆகும். ஆக இந்த தாட்ஸ் எல்லாம் எப்படி சயின்ஸை எப்படி காம்ப்ளிமெண்ட் பண்ண முடியும் அப்படின்னு இந்தியன் ஃபிலாசபி சொல்கிறதுங்கிறத அவர் சொல்லியிருக்கார். இந்த புத்தகத்தை பற்றி பேசிகிட்டே இருந்தால் கிடையாது, இவ்வளோ தான் நான் பேசியிருக்கேன். நான் பேசினது தப்பு நிறையா இருக்கேன், ஏன்னா நான் சயின்டிஸ்ட்லாம் கிடையாது. அதாவது நீங்கள் படிக்கிற மாதிரி நான் படிக்கிறேன், சில சமயம் ஞாபகம் வச்சுக்கிறேன், அவ்வளோதான். அதனால் நான் வந்து ரொம்ப சயின்டிஃபிக் வந்துட்டேன். நான் சொல்லியிருக்கேன், தப்பு இருந்தால் இல்லை, தப்பு இருந்தால் விட்டுருங்க, அது இன்னும் பேசுன்னு சொல்லிட்டு விட்டுருங்க. அது மனிதனுக்கும் சொல்ல மாட்டேன், எனக்கு புரிஞ்ச அர்த்தப்படி அது ரைட்டு, புரியுதா. நான் வந்து நான் பண்ணதுக்கு ஷமிப்புங்கிறது என்ன பொறுத்தவரை எனக்கு கன்வின்ஸ், ஐ டோன்ட் வாண்ட் டு பி கன்வின்ஸ், விட்டுருங்க, அவ்வளோதானே. அதாவது நான் சொல்கிறது தப்புன்னு சொல்லிடுங்க. இன் எசன்ஸ் அதாவது வந்து இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் வருது. அதாவது வந்து சம்ஸ்கிருதம் படிக்கணுங்கிறதுக்கே புண்ணியம் பண்ணியிருக்கணும், அது வேதம் படிக்கிறது அதோட புண்ணியம் பண்ணியிருக்கணும். அந்த வேதம் படிக்கணும்னு இருக்கு இல்லையா, வேதம் படிக்கிறது ஒன்றும் குடிக்கணும், சந்தேகம் படுறதுக்கு பகவான் அருள் வேணும். எல்லாம் நிறைஞ்சிருக்கு, அவரோட ஆசீர்வாதம் நம்ம எல்லாருக்கும் இருக்கணும் அப்படின்னு சொல்லிவிட்டு, மே காட் அபிராமி bless us all and thank you for your patience.
I will start this thing because I don't want to lose time. Namo Brahmane, Namo Gurubhyo Namaha, Namo Sadase. That is salutation to Sadase. And I stand before you just to explain the basics and the logics that is involved in Vedas and scriptures, by understanding which all the bird's eye view that has been given earlier by my elder speaker, you can yourself understand and develop it further. And since most of us are only pratimargi, we have not done any crime or anything, and we have not been corrupt, we have not cheated anybody. Therefore, we are all eligible to take the steps of Patanjali and reach the domain from where we can also download and become greatest of scientists like Parashara, all these Brigu, all these people. I don't mention here British scientists or American scientists. Our own scientists are of a better color, better stature, and Krishna himself says, what I have given in 17,000 couplets of Vedas, more than 50% is metaphysics, and it is all Rajaguhyam, Rajavidya, Jnanam, Vijnanam Astikyam. All this says it is superfine sophisticated sciences and technology. Very, 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 this one, Krishna, I know you, you are very serious, I have decided, I have seen it, therefore I am revealing this book here on the tree. I'll go to the stage and then. I think, with your permission, should I take 30 minutes or 15 minutes or what? I can cut it anytime. Okay, I can take my time. You can. All of you are sitting. Ravi.
We'd like to honor two more people, Mr. Ravindra Menon, AGM of IOB. And Mr. Satish, who's Chief Manager of IOB.
It all originated in the late 80s and starting 90s. My father is a spiritualist, spiritual scientist. He will not easily admit anything that is told to him, whether it is philosophy or whether it is sciences or technology. He always used to digest it, dissect it and see it. He was aware that Veda means like which to know. So for Veda is knowledge is very clear to him. But at the same time he was surprised, if this is the knowledge, then there are funny statements in Vedas. Indran Kalal Kudikatam, Indra Somam Pivatu. What is this? Ludicrous statement. What's Jyoti Pradeshita, Jyoti se Adsu Pradeshita. Tannila light irke, light la thanni irke, light and thanniya ஆகாசத்துல இருக்கு. இது என்னத்தை புரிஞ்சுக்கிறதுப்பா, இந்த மாதிரி இருந்ததுன்னா இதை ஞானம்னு எப்படி சொல்றது அப்படின்னு அவருக்கு ஒரே சந்தேகம். அதனால he started spending his mind with the help of people from Raman, all used to discuss hours together with Shivaraman, Kajiraman, Keduraman, Ramani and all this. And then finally they drafted a letter to Dr. Chandrasekhar and Mrs. Chandrasekhar, who happened to be his students. And that letter was typed by Ramani with the help of Angatraman, my brother, my sisters and all that. I was away silently at Ranchi, so I could not participate in that letter. That letter is also there in the copy I kept. Anybody wants to go through it, they can. Okay? Now with this, he is not only on the Vedic side, on the subject side, he started for the first time physical chemistry laboratory in India with getting 25,000 rupees from Viceroy India. At that time people ridiculed him. What relationship chemistry with chemistry, mathematics and physics? Okay, and he also in the Stanley Medical College he started the biochemistry department. He had 25 scholarships, Fulbright. People, the greatest of scientists of those days, sat in his hall in his lecture. At the end of the lecture it appears they used to give him a Fulbright scholarship, but he could not take it because of the domestic condition. Otherwise, if he had done that, he would have made 2 or 3 Nobel Prizes. It was nothing for him. He was originally. So that inspired me. At that time, I was like Anush. I was not carrying. Okay, I went there, Ranchi, all those things, and I was carried away by those. But then, when he gave me the I was so far, this one. From that time I started myself fixing to that. Now let's go to the slides, please.
Slide.
So such ludicrous statements, how can you believe? That is what he has started. Then he went through, then he found, because I was taking time and proceeding. Okay. So he went through and then found out in Taittiriya Upanishad there is a concept which is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. They have defined, they have not defined, Muthuswami to note, because he has been my critic, and he said, how do you say that all things can be defined about Brahma? Brahma is not definable, but explainable. So that's what I told him. The explanation was not given by me or you, it has been given by the greatest of sages. Okay, so we admit that explanation. The explanation says in Taittiriya Upanishad, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. Jnanam Brahma is the first thing. Jnanam is Arive. Brahman is Arive. That is all. It doesn't say about Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma, nothing. Brahman is Arive. Next it says, Separate Arive. Satyam, Jnanam, Brahma. Yes, correct. Yes, everything which can be experimentally verified and repeatable. That is the Jnana. The next point it says is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Anantam means from Kodana Brahmandangal. Today, tomorrow, another Kodana Brahmandangal varapurthu. Adha neenga naangal varapporom. Adha rose study varapurthu. Idu ellathiyum munnadiye predetermine panni adhe mari nadathi selradhu. In the meantime, நல்ல people join பண்ணினா அவளுடைய வியூஸை கேட்டு மாடிஃபை பண்ணுறது தான் பிரம்மாவனுடைய வேலை. So Brahma is not a person, it is a concept, it is an axiom, it is as much of an axiom as 1, 2, 3, 4 or as much of an axiom as point. You know what is the definition of point? That which has no length or width or depth. Can you imagine anything like this in reality? Nothing like that. But you are allowed in science to axiomatics and develop a model like the Euclidean geometry, and what is useful. Afterwards, if it is not useful, another model is created. So Brahman is an axiomatic, but unlike other Euclidean axioms, it is unfailing axiom. Okay, so that is the thing. Now, how do you say, okay, Brahma has been explained, how am I to believe? There comes Gayatri. Gayatri says that sages, that primordial force, which is responsible for the governance of the entire universe. This means you and me. It only says that primordial force. Let it govern not my mind alone, but all our minds. You understood? There's a difference. It doesn't say little content my mind. It doesn't say mind. It is buddhi. Thank you, Swami, for that. He gave me that comment. So, okay, so let it kindle our buddhi. Buddhi is different from mind. We will not talk about it. We will talk it later about it. Now, so let it kindle our buddhi. Okay, what happens? So therefore, it doesn't talk of Shiva Brahma. So in Brahma Padesha also you would have noticed, are we telling Gayatri Mantra or Vishnu Sahasranamam? You understood? Therefore, we propitiated only Nirguna aspect of Brahman. And this Nirguna aspect of Brahman, is it only to us? Only Hindus can claim? No. It is common to the entire universe. What Brahman concept is for us, Allah is for Muslims. You understood? But only thing is, you should know how to follow those the explanation. If you don't follow, there is no Brahman or anything. Okay? So therefore, this was explained as this. Now therefore, now Om. We are saying Om is Brahman. What is Om? Brahman is not this one. Brahman is not only for this universe, there is one sustained. We have said, and also Evat. These people have said, multi-universe, they have said there are 10 to the power of 500 universes, which Krishna has shown some of them to Arjuna and this one. So there are 10 to the power of 500, you know what it is? 1 followed by 500 zeros. So many prapanchas are there and will be there. So all this Brahman is supposed to, does it not be, when we build a house or a village, we have a flag. Cannot Brahma have a flag? Om is this flag. Now next, why Om? The only one of the few religions in the world which has recognized in terms of Shabda. In terms of, there was no word, I tried to search a word for frequency, it is not there in the dictionary of Sanskrit language. It is only the Shabda. Shabda represents frequency. Whereas the Western fellows, when they wanted to find out something is absent, they are not explained, they started making particles. But we didn't go to particle at all. We said only frequencies. So Shabda is that frequency, Om is that frequency, when every universe out of 10 to the power 500, when they started, the frequency was at that Om condition, and that Om condition now, because of the string theory, they say the universe initiated at a wavelength of 10 to the power of minus 33 centimeters. What is 10 to the power of minus 33 centimeters? 0.00033 zeros 1. At that wavelength, we people said, you see, the entire universe was created from vacuum. Brahman is vacuum. Brahman is joy. Brahman is everything. Brahman is vacuum. These fellows asked, what nonsense? How can vacuum produce universes? That was some 50 years ago. Afterwards, many scientists have come to understand it is only in vacuum everything forms. So thousands of years back we have said vacuum is the source. Now these people are limping behind and saying yes, vacuum is the source. How vacuum is the source? When the wavelength is equal to 10 to the power minus 33 centimeters, the energy of 1 cubic centimeter of that vacuum will be equal to creation of 10 to 20,000 universes. That is the amount of energy packed in your vacuum. This knowledge was known to our rishis. So said, Brahman is knowledge, Brahman is vacuum, Brahman is everything. And Brahman is the concept. Then why did this, so the Saguna, they said, why did this Saguna came? Why the concept of Krishna, Lakshmi, all those things came? Angala, Parameshwari, everything came. Because you cannot take the PhD exam right after finishing your second class. You have to go step by step. Correct? You have to go step by step. You cannot go to the PhD or doctorate like here. You may not go next day. And next is, in Kali Yuga, Krishna himself says, it is Saguna Brahman is better. It is Aradhana, Bhakti Bandunga, Bhakti Marga is the best. For Bhakti Marga, you must have something. Okay, therefore the Saguna came. Saguna came because it has got, now the quantum physics has linked back and says, it is the universe we create is modified by our collective thinking. What is collective thinking? We are divided by collective thinking. That is, if you know how we explain that collective thinking is, in various yugas, in the first yuga, Krita yuga is it, which yuga it is? First yuga, what happened? Everybody was very good. Everything lived forever. Now they wanted to, they died. But next yuga it reduced, next yuga it is reduced. Now it is, why it has happened? Because at that time there was positive, there was negative, there were good things, there were bad things. There were asuras, there were devas even in the first yuga. But the net balance was positive. The next yuga, net balance became less. The next yuga, less. In this yuga, I think all of you know what it is. Okay, therefore, this is what it is. Therefore, if you take that, so now this concept they have laid down in your itihasas and things like that, in the sort of mythologies and stories and things like that. Whereas now the quantum physics says what is called quantum activism. Let us take all together and then do good. The more you do good, the more you will get return. As you sow, you reap. Okay. Now quantum mechanism is the lip of everybody. Next. Another point they said is, I think the slide is will take a lot of time, so I will go ahead and finish it off, try to finish it up earlier. Next thing they said is, Apsu Jyoti Pradeshitam, Jyotir Apsu Pradeshitaha. What is it? Tannila light is light Tanni is. அப்புறம் என்ன அர்த்தம் அதுக்கு அர்த்தமே இல்லை. Okay, if you really so what happened, our Maharshis, this knowledge is total, I told you, no, total knowledge, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, that total knowledge. Where is this knowledge? Where this knowledge is available? Somewhere it should be there. Where is this knowledge? They said, then they correlated, they did not give me an executive paper like this, explaining everything. They did not give the formula, they only indicated the end result. The rishis indicated only the end result as they heard. Frequency modulation, frequency resonance. By that they heard. How they heard? By frequency resonance. I call it resonant frequency, or I forget the word, it is frequency matching. Just like we do in radio, TV, and all that. What we do, trituration is a particular frequency. We create a here local oscillator which has a frequency here. So match, then goes there is a boom. That boom is collected and amplified. This is the process the rishis have adopted and downloaded all the contents. What is that? Om Akashaha. The Parabrahman created first Akasha. He need not have created, he doesn't have head. Concept. It's a concept. He created Akasha. That means what did he do for Akasha? It is available in Purusha Sukta. Sahasra Shirsha Purusha. It took 1,000 years to start Purusha. Why? So that it is available everywhere. Where? Everywhere you say, okay, escape. Everywhere you can go away. No. It is available in every atom. How do you say that? It is like this. In a pin, if you want to make a head of a pin, the number of atoms that sits on the pin is about 1,00,000 also. You take one atom, multiple, enlarge it to the field of a football field. There one gravel, small gravel is the material. Rest what? Rest what? Akasha, Vetrivali. All our people here they said Vetrivali. Trimura said that. Vetrivali. So in the Vetrivali, pure knowledge is available. This our Maharshis came to understand. They simply downloaded from Akasha. There are two methods of doing science. Krishna himself says that. First method is bottom up. That is what the scientists are doing today. The next method is top down. That is what our Maharshis did. But why they did? Because they know our Aimbulas will not keep quiet. They will never show the reality. Therefore, what our Shankara said is, there is a limit beyond which the so-called inductive logic applies, and beyond that, it is the intuitive perception that takes over. Where it is represented? It is represented by Dakshinamurti. If you look at Dakshinamurti, what does it do? It does a chin mudra, reflect within yourself. And what else? Ramana Maharshi, what did he say? Go on asking, who am I? You will find the answer. Because you will be able to link up your personality with the Akasha. And then you can elevate your personality. But that is not simple. It's not that Sheshadranath Swami, when I went and approached and asked for views, he said, you have written Gopalan like 1 or 2 Gayatris, you make everything is okay, you get linked up. No! You have to prove yourself. That will come a little later, okay? Now, therefore, our Maharshis understood these are all there in the Akasha. And this fact was also became known because some bad Maharshis were there, they leaked it out, just as what is happening today, and joining sites. Therefore, these Rakshasas came to know about it. They also said Tevat and then forced these Maharshis and then got the secret out, and then you see they began self-aggrandizement, killing people and all this for their own sake. Okay? Therefore, what happened? Krishna said, the Gayatri Mana said, look here, hereafter this should not happen. Sambhavami again they did when the whole collapse came to that, and thereafter said, we will clamp all sorts of gate control. What are the gate controls available? Phonetic gate control, mantri gate control, and then your ethnic gate control. These controls have been applied today. Security guards are waiting there. If you go with any wrong thing, you have done some mischief, you have stolen somebody's property, no admission into the Akasha. Your security pass will not be valid. But if you are genuine, like most of us here, we have not committed any crime, we call that status, Patanjali calls the status, what is called the Pravritti Marga. Pravritti Marga, most of us qualify for Pravritti Marga. But if you are little more serious, you can also attempt drawing it down from the Akasha. In that case, you need not have to do heavy research. You have to simply get it rolled down on your this one. Okay? Now, do you want me to continue more? I can continue for hours and hours, but I think it's already too late in the day, night or whatever it is. I shall stop with this with your permission. If you want me to continue, I shall. Thank you. I have hours of material, but I think I should stop somewhere. Thank you. If you follow the book, if you have any problem, anytime you call me on everything I have given, I will explain. And if you want me to address any number of people, I am also willing, available from this moment onwards. Thank you.
Now my father would do the vote of thanks.
First of all, I would like to thank all young and old who made this book launch. That's okay. A success. This is our first time to come here at an event of this nature. Request for any request us to be apologized for any lapses up front on that. The event is a dream come true of my grandfather, late Professor S. Lakshmi Narayanan, who laid in us some of the foundations early on, while me and my cousins were kids, where he had practically tried laying the foundations of educating and creating Rishi scientists. The result of which we are all proud of today. It has inspired my dad to take this concept and further expand into a book form, which we envision to see each chapter of this book expand to lectures of its own. From here on, we also have actually launched a website where this book is being published and where there's going to be a blog created where interactions can be created and people can people from different professions can actually interchange and interact. It's an environment which we are creating for this. This allows a social network concept of like-minded, self-introspecting, inquisitive individuals to create an environment for interaction. I would like to thank one and all who have been instrumental in making a start of this journey. We thank all the sponsors and the members of those organizations, their vendors who have supported us all through the journey in creating this book and publicizing the same through their promotional materials. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank specifically our bankers, City Union Bank and IOB, our publishers and distributors like PowerPress, Odyssey, and many other online stores, our customers and suppliers, our well-wishers and close family friends, and more importantly, our families, and the support specifically given by my uncle, aunts, and my mother. We would like to appreciate her for being the the person who has supported my dad to get this book out. And so, absolutely.
She has been my experimental decoy. Okay. She has heard this lecture so many times. I tolerated it.
Not only this lecture, so many other not only this lecture, so many other lectures.
அதோடதான் என்ன
போட்டுக்கோங்க போட்டுக்கோங்க போட்டுக்கோங்க
We request everybody who is here to have dinner with us, and if any other questions are there, people can actually interact as you're having dinner. After.